Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Vision Banter, a platform where we explore how ambition, work, and identity are evolving in real time. Today's conversation sits in a space that feels impressive on the surface but is much more complex underneath. Teenagers today are not just studying, they are building, they are founding initiatives, leading teams, publishing research, shaping personal brands even before they step into college. From a business lens, it almost looks like they are running early versions of startups. Each achievement becomes a milestone, each experience becomes an asset, but behind that structure, there is also a human side that we do not always talk about. The pressure to keep going on, the fear of slowing down, and the quiet question of whether any of it is enough or not. So, to explore this, we have Artrika, someone who represents this shift in a very rare way. Our guest is a high school student from Greater Noida, currently pursuing humanities with a long term vision of entering into public services. She is the founder of Inks and Insights, has worked across human resources, content, outreach, and editorial roles as well. If you look at it from the outside, this is a highly driven and a multi-dimensional profile, but it also reflects a very large shift. A generation that is learning to achieve, perform, and build very early in life. So, which brings this us to this one question we are exploring today, and it is when achievement starts to look like a system, what does that do the person inside it? So, Artrika, you have worked with teens across multiple organizations. So, can we know what was the moment you realized that high achieving teenagers were a silent crisis hiding in plain sight?
First of all, Hazel, thank you so much for having me here. And now coming to your question. So, working with teenagers across different spaces, I did not had like a very dramatic moment of realization or something like that. It was more like a pattern that kept on repeating itself, which was very quiet. So on paper, the moments were like it used to look very extremely high achieving individuals, teenagers who have great grades, leadership roles, packed schedules, and like constant productivity all over. But when I used to have conversations with them, interaction with them, it was like a very different picture that came out. It was full of exhaustion, it was full of anxiety, it was full of the constant fear that they are not doing enough. Even after they are doing more than enough, they used to have like a constant fear that they might be lacking somewhere, or they might not be working up to the mark. So the moment it really clicked me was when I saw that this has been so much normalized. This contradiction has been so much normalized that we celebrate their achievements publicly, but privately, many of them were just struggling to keep up with their own image of success. So that's when I realized that it's not just an individual stress, it's a silent crisis hiding behind that what we really called a high achievement individual or a high achievement a teenager.
That is a very deep thought, I would say, because it's actually it's a very dark truth that everyone who has a lot of achievements, they need to go through a lot of things, and especially teenagers. So it's really a very good realization that it is actually a silent crisis, which is in everybody, and it's affecting everybody. So this answer of yours takes us to the next question, which is that we are celebrating toppers, state rankers, and the well-rounded students. So at what point does achievement become a symptom rather than a success?
So what I personally think is that achievement stops feeling more like a success and starts becoming a symptom the very moment when we stop choosing it. Rather, becomes a part of our identity. It becomes a part of the validation that we need in the society. For example, there's a student who begins to feel that their worth is directly tied up to their performance, their marks, their ranks, their medals. Then the achievement is no longer something that they are growing through. It becomes something that they are surviving on, and that shift is very subtle. It doesn't come with a breakdown or a clear moment or something like that. It builds quietly. You see, it when you see when the students there are, they can't rest without guilt. Even if I talk about myself, I am surrounded by people that when I try to rest a bit, I feel guilty that how could I rest? I have so much to do, and I'm not the only one who faced this problem, but there were a lot of teenagers out there who really feel guilty when they are trying to rest out or trying to escape the burnout thing. So when 95 feels like a failure because someone else got 98, or when they stop asking, do I like this, or only someone asks, will this look good on your or on my record, that is something that is something when where achievement does not really something that it's not really up to the mark. You start questioning yourself. That is where achievements is not a part of something.
Yeah, that's great because it actually makes the other person feel that yeah, it's everyday's thing now. And instead of perceiving it as a success, it actually becomes a symptom. And it actually affects a lot of, a person's health and the mental health especially. And this is something I would say that mental health is a burning topic these days, and it needs to be talked a lot because it's so much deep that it's very hard to understand someone. So, thank you for the great answer, though. And the next thing is that there's a difference between a teenager who loves to achieve and the other one who fears not achieving. So, how do you spot that line in your one-on-one sessions with whatsoever teenagers you have been through with or like you have conversated with?
So, in my one-to-one sessions, what I felt was that a teenager who genuinely enjoys achievement, or so they usually take up efforts, they take up interest, and sometimes even failure is natural for them. They do not much overthink that. They consider it as a part of the process. Failure is a part of the process. There's a kind of ease in their voice, even when there's ambitious. It does not feel tight. It feels like it's very open-ended kind of a thing. But when achievements is driven by fear, you can feel it. You can feel the pressure in their words. So there's a drastic change between these two individuals. Their answers often sound rearranged, or they are more likely to be more filtered, and they are more likely to be they are trying to set in the society. So you can clearly notice a difference between one who really enjoys the achievement and the other one who is really fearing that achievement. So honestly, sometimes it's in the silence too, when they stop themselves mid sentences as if they're scared of saying the word wrong version of their own truth. So for me, the difference isn't that loud, it's how much space they allow for themselves while talking. Love for the achievement feels spacious, and fear for not achieving feels a lot more compressed.
Amazing. And it's actually very deep, to spot this difference. But once you are able to spot the difference, it actually makes a lot of sense. And yeah, it was a very great response from your end. And I love it that you are actually able to suspect these kind of differences at this age. So you have worked with a lot of organizations, and a few of them are Healing Up, Serene Foundation, Meraki Minds. So, what's one pattern you have seen in high achieving teens that genuinely shocked you? Because there are a lot of teenagers who might be involved in those organizations, and might be that you have conducted certain sessions with as well, right? So, there is a pattern, right? Because everyone who's a very high achieving teenager, they are following certain things. So what's that pattern that you've seen in those teens?
So one pattern that honestly stayed with me is how normalized emotional isolation has become among the high achieving teens. So across all those three spaces, I was expecting to see stress, I was expecting to see pressure or even burnout. But what surprised me the most was how they have already internalized the idea that they have to deal with everything alone to be considered as strong, or to be considered as focused by their peers, by their family, or by the society. So a lot of them constantly were surrounded by the people in their schools, in their coachings, in the competitions, and other online platforms as well. But still, they used to feel that there is no real space where they can, be fully honest without being judged or corrected. So, so they start, compartmentalizing themselves. So like one version of themselves for achievement is another for emotions, and sometimes they do not even fully meet their other versions as well. What really struck me was what really struck me how early this starts. It's not just college or board exam pressure. It begins much earlier, where being sorted or being disciplined is rewarded more than being open or confused. Like over time they got very good at functioning, but not necessarily they good at functioning. They were good at their academics and everything, but they were not good at expressing. They cannot articulate, they cannot have a set goal. They could not had a set deadline. They could not had a set plan, because there was this constant struggle of being engaged all over different domains in their life, and still they had no one. Even after having multiple people around them, they had no one who they can reach out and who they can really express themselves, because they constantly have that fear that they will be judged. They won't be considered they are focused. They won't be considered strong teenagers that we are around. So that was the pattern that made me realize that the issue isn't that teens aren't talking. It's that they are often only talking in spaces where they are expected to perform even their emotions correctly. And that for me is the most concerning part.
That was actually a very, like, it's a very appropriate answer to this. And Artrika, to be very honest, I can resonate with this a lot. So there was a particular incident in my life, and I'm not like, like something like flaunting or something like that, but then I have had like certain achievements in my life. So recently there was this X thing which was happening, and I did not get that, even though I worked for it and I worked for years. Okay. And then, when, of course, it's a very genuine expression, that a very genuine reaction, that when you're not getting something you worked for, and that too for 4 years, so it becomes a very, very, you get hurt, of course. But then it was a school thing, right? And then what response I got in return was that, हेजल तुम्हारी तो इतनी अचीवमेंट्स है, इतनी सी बात का क्यों मतलब है ना, ये वो एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट स्टफ. एंड the thing that struck my like mind was that, if you have number of achievements, if you're not getting a particular thing you worked for, so you need to normalize it, because you will not be heard. And it will be like कि हाँ भी तुम आदर डाल लो, and if you have a lot of achievements, it doesn't matter that if you're not getting a particular one. So I don't know if this makes sense to you, but
It does, it does.
so it's actually perceived this way, that if a person is getting successful or is having some certain achievements, so they need to deal with certain things at their own ends, and everyone will be like, don't expect much, you can do it, you can do it. So that you can do it needs a lot. That needs a lot.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that was a very appropriate answer. And you have also conducted workshops, right? And when you ask teens that why are you doing all this, like the achievements and all of that stuff. So, what's the most common answer?
Hazel, you won't believe me, but the most common answer is actually not a clear reason. It's more of a feeling that is dressed in response. So a lot of teens pause for a moment and they say things like, I don't really know, I just have to, or maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. Sometimes it becomes like, I want to have a good future. But when you genuinely ask them or gently ask them what this really means to them personally, it often stays very vague answer. You do not get a real reason. When I have noticed it that it is a motivation is rarely internal in the beginning. It is inherited. So the motivation is not internal. It is like inherited from their surroundings or from the society or from the people around them. So from expectations, from comparisons, from the idea that success is a fixed path rather than something you define. And there have nothing wrong with ambition. But the interesting shift happens when they realize that they have been running for a goal they never really choose themselves. So that is the most shocking part for those teenagers. After a long time of working continuously, being a part of the rat race, they realize that the goal they are working, the goal they are pursuing was not something that they really wanted to have. It was something that they were just given that you need to do this. On the rare occasion when someone does answer differently, it stands out immediately. So you can feel it. They will say something simple like, I really enjoy this subject, or it makes me feel really good when I improve. And suddenly the conversation feels lighter and more grounded. So for me personally, the common answer isn't just a statement. It's like a very big gap, a gap between what they are doing and what they are actually thinking to do. So that's what I have commonly witnessed among most of the teenagers.
Yes, and I think it's most of the times it's just everything is like peer pressure. Like this person is doing that, so
Exactly.
that is why I want to do that. So yeah, we
Yeah.
never get a clear answer for why certain things are being done, and there's no specifications of goals. It's just I would say that it's just peer pressure.
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's
moving on.
and I would also say they are the societal expectations that they are
Exactly.
imposed on the team currently.
And I think in Indian societies, this comparison has been there since long, since centuries.
Yeah.
So this comparison
From
actually,
generation to generation.
yeah, and it compels the children to be in positions even if
Yeah.
they don't want to be. So, moving on, an average teen, whenever they open LinkedIn and they see their peers announcing a TED Talk, a UN fellowship, and a Forbes feature all at 17. So, what does that actually do to a developing mind? Because, see, if we resonate it with countries, so if we see USA, it is a developed country, and if we see India, it's a developing mind. So, if we resonate it like India looking at USA with a developing mindset, so how would you define that in terms of the teens?
So, see, at first it starts with a very soft, sweet admiration that, wow, that's so impressive. And wow, she's doing so good. Wow, he's doing so great. But over time, especially when it becomes repetitive, it can shift to a subtle internal pressure that if that person at the 17, his or her life looks like this, then what does my 17 looks like? And that tricky part is that social media doesn't show the timelines. It shows highlights. So the mind ends up comparing someone else's finished chapter with our rough drafts. They do not show the backside of the story. They do not show that how long it took for that particular person to come up where he or she is right now. They would directly show that they have accomplished this, they have done this, but what happened behind the bars, what happened behind the spaces, they won't show that. And that's when overthinking starts, and that's when self doubt starts, and that's when teenagers usually get identity crisis. So for a developing mind, that can be two things at once. One can be that it is motivating, but the second is very common, that can shrink a person's personality. Achievements that would normally feel meaningful, it starts to feel very insufficient or very delayed. They would even if they are achieving a lot, but still they would constantly compare themselves from an xyz person just because their life looks very lavish on the internet, or they are getting more praise than them, even though both of the people have different careers, they have different paths, but then they are not able to identify that, they are not able to distinguish between that. And when that happens early, success stops feeling like a personal journey and it starts feeling like a public scoreboard, I would say. So the impact isn't just about ambition, it's the pressure of constantly feeling late to a race you didn't fully agree to run, I would say that. So it's basically a rat race where we all are just moving towards the finish line even though we did not wanted to participate in this race, I would say. So yeah.
Exactly. And this thing, this answer of yours, it actually resonates with the peer pressure a lot because some people, if you open LinkedIn and you see a certain achievement of someone, so some people will be perceiving it as motivation, but I think most of them will be thinking, this person has done this, why am I not doing it? So no one actually looks at the path to the success. And do you think that LinkedIn is quietly becoming the new report card for this generation? Because where your worth isn't just your grades anymore, but your profile, your connections, and your endorsements?
In many ways, honestly, I would say yes, but not officially. See, LinkedIn hasn't replaced the school report cards, but it has created a parallel system of the validation, I would say. So for a lot of young people, especially those who are ambitious early on, their profile starts feeling like a public scoreboard of who they are really becoming. And unlike the grades, which are private and periodic, this feels like a continuous process and very much visible. And it becomes something where you need validation from others. And once you stop getting that validation, you start doing self doubt. So I would say in many cases, yes, but not officially. So, like every post, every certificate, every connection becomes something that feels quietly evaluated. Everything is being evaluated, and if the evaluation is something that you were expecting, if it is in the positive sense for you, you will be happy enough. But if it goes on the negative side, if the tables turn, then the level of overthinking, the level of self doubt, the level of identity crisis you're going to be facing, you're going to be questioning yourself, is just the next level. So the concern isn't LinkedIn itself, I would say, it's how it starts shaping the self worth. So when a teenager begins to, feel that their credibility depends on how impressive their profile looks, rather than how deeply they are actually learning or growing, that focus shifts. Like today, teenagers try to get engaged in multiple internships, but their motive is not to, learn something, learn a new skill, or have a good growth. Rather, their main motive is, I need to get an LOR, I need to get a certificate so that I can have a good profile picture. Sorry, I can have a good profile, and I could be socially accepted by the society, and my peers would be very much happy from me. They would admire me. So that is something today teenagers life has become. I've seen students hesitate to explore something new just because it might look no, just because it would not look good on the internet. That's where it becomes less about documentation and more about the performance. So I would say LinkedIn is a report card, but it is becoming a mirror, and sometimes a magnified one, where teenagers start seeing themselves through external matrices and more than internal understanding. They do not know what they have to do. The interest might lie in content creation, but they end up doing the social media marketing, just because content creation till now in India is not that much recognized. While being in the marketing management, or being in a good company, in a good internship, is socially accepted, that you are earning good, it's good enough. So the real question is not whether the mirror exists or not, LinkedIn exists or not, but whether we are teaching the young people how to look into it without losing their own sense, or without losing your own self-worth, I would say.
That's great. You actually are resonating with a lot of people right now. Whosoever will be listening to this, they will actually be able to, get a lot of realizations. And even I am getting those because yeah. So because there are certain people who are actually not following what they want to do. So basically, what we talked about in the starting, that there's not a goal. So that is why things are
Hmm.
being done randomly. So these are a lot of,
I,
things. And I would say that to make this conversation a bit more interesting and interactive, I would really appreciate a rapid fire round. So I would just say that, would you be up for that?
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so amazing. So the first question is that one word that defines success today.
I would say clarity. Clarity of your own goals that you aspire to, achieve.
Amazing. Okay, so biggest misconception about high achieving teens.
That they have already figured out everything, what they have to do in the future, what is the course they are going to pursue, what they are going to do. No one has figured out everything. Few of the people are just going with the flow, and you should even go with the flow. You were on mute, Hazel.
Okay. Burnout or underachievement, which is more dangerous?
I would say burnout, because underachievement, I believe it is something that is temporary. A person can always restart. But burnout is something that slows everything down. It is because and as a psychology student, I have been studying psychology since last 2 years in my high school. So what I have learned is that extreme burnout or severe burnout can also lead to psychological disorders, physiological illness, that in the worst case scenario, the self doubt, and you won't be able to achieve what you really have to do. So I would say underachievement is good, but burnout is definitely not good. Underachievement can always be turned into achievement, but burnout can never be changed into productivity. So I would say burnout is very much dangerous.
Yes, and I think there are always opportunities for us. So underachievement should never be considered a case, right? Like everyone can have opportunities in their life. Okay, so the next is that one invisible pressure teens carry today.
um that I need to constantly move forward. I need to constantly prove the society, prove my friends, prove my family that I'm not falling behind. I'm always on the top notch person. I have everything planned out. So that is something, the biggest internal pressure I would say. You don't have to figure out everything. You do not have to be perfect all the time. Being not okay is also okay in today's time. And we need to understand that, especially the teenagers today need to understand that.
And I would say that Gen Z is the first generation to actually talk about emotions like this. And I
Yeah.
think that in the previous generations, I don't think people might be having conversations just like we are doing right now. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, exactly. So the next is achievement that you respect the most.
Consistency. I would say consistency. Showing up even when you feel that things are not going in the right way. You are not motivated. No one is watching you, but still showing up, still working hard the way you have been working. So that is something I would say is the biggest achievement I would respect. Consistency, working with hard work, working with the same level of persistence every single day and showing up.
Exactly. And I would say that achievements should not be like getting an internship here or maybe something like that. Achievement should actually be the skill set that you're growing. And
Exactly.
consistency is a very important part of that. Okay. So the second last question is one red flag that looks like success but is not.
I would say always being busy, always being engaged with your work and never giving time to your, what we call is me time, never having that me time or never spending time with your family. See, it looks very fancy. It sounds very great that I'm busy right now. I cannot catch up in this family function. I cannot catch up in this program today. But this is the biggest red flag. And this is the biggest reason why people burn out because you need rest. You are a human body. You are not a robot that you can just constantly keep on 24 hours. You can work. You need rest. And that is the biggest red flag that you are constantly busy in the work and not giving enough rest that you require.
Exactly. And I think that there is no person on this earth who's always busy. Like it's
Correct.
just it has just become a thing that I am busy, I will talk to you later. So
Exactly.
I would say that me time is very important. Like you can even skip a part of your day, a very important part of your day, but me time is the most important thing.
I agree.
Okay, and moving towards the last question of this amazing rapid fire, because your answers have been so on the point, to the point, and very good and crisp as well. So the last one is that if you could redesign this system, what would you change first? Like this system.
I would say how success is defined and measured in today's time. So it's always marks driven. It's always comparison. Like it's basically a rat race. Like I mentioned, it's basically a rat race where we all are just running towards the finish line that we never even signed up for. So I would basically shift the system from a more holistic one to a more holistic one where critical thinking, emotional well-being, and creativity are valued more than the marks, more than the societal expectations, and more than the academic scores. So because when you change that what is valuable for you, everything starts changing from that point of time. If you value your emotional well-being more than the academic scores and more than the societal expectations, there's something that is the point where things start to change. So that's where the system should change. There should be a holistic mode of shift, I would say.
And I think that this is the real takeaway from today's conversation. And that was a very, very good answer. Okay, so I would say that to come to the end, the real question is not just how much all of us can achieve. It is that whether we can do all of this and still feel grounded in who we are beyond everything that we are trying to become, because behind every strong profile there is still a person who is figuring out things in real time. And I would say that Atrika, thank you so much for making us realize this, and also being with us today for this fruitful session, because these are the realizations which are much much needed these days.
I'm
So
really
yeah,
grateful for being here today. It was this initiative is a great one to really talk about our feelings, really talk about that what really matters in today's time. As you said, the Gen Zs are the first one to really talk about emotions. Before us, there was no one who was talking about emotion. They used to think that emotion, it's not something we should throw light on, or spend time on. But emotions is something that is connected to everything. If you're emotionally well-being, if you're emotionally stable, everything is stable. But if you're emotionally unstable, every single thing will go unstable for you. So that is something I would say Gen Zs understand more than any other generation out there.
exactly. And they actually talk about it. And you are one
Yeah.
of those. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for this. And it was a really, really great conversation, Atrika. And we are looking forward to having more such conversations with you at Vision Banter.
Likewise, Hazel. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you.